Welcome, everyone, to the Addicts Truth Podcast. My name is Recoveryjon. I'm excited today to have my friend Chuck. Chuck, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, man. Honored to be here.
Let's start with what's your sobriety date?
December 28th, 2010.
All right, well, we'll kick into it, but I want to definitely say how you are a special person in my life. Chuck is someone through friends, family, 12 steps. That's been a very important part of my life and my recovery journey. So this is a different type of episode that I'm excited for. Let's start with, childhood. What did your childhood look like?
I've been giving that a lot of thought lately. I used to think I had a really screwed up childhood, which I did, but it's not the cause of all the problems that I brought on myself. Born and raised in Danbury. I remember we had a nice house, built-in pool. I remember relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles all coming over on weekends, going swimming and barbecuing. When I was 5 years old, it was like the rug was pulled out from under me. My grandfather passed away. I think that's what my father was waiting for. He took off with another woman and left my mother, my older sister, and myself. Within a month, we were homeless. We wound up moving in with my grandmother, who lived in low-income housing developments in Danbury. And I had a lot of fun as a kid. Wasn't much discipline. I pretty much ran wild. But we had a lot of good times, got hurt a lot. It was growing up in the late 60s, early 70s, much different than today. We didn't come home until the streetlights came on. That was the old saying. A lot of friends, but I was always an outsider. Just never quite felt right. My mother, my grandmother had passed away, so my mother had to raise myself and my sister, and she worked her tail off. So needless to say, there was never an adult home. And that's when things really got bad, like 12, 13 years old, skipping school. I'd walk to school in the morning, and she'd go to work, and I'd go back home. And at the house, there were no cameras, doorbell cameras back then. Neighbors didn't care. Schools didn't call when you didn't show up. You just see it on the report card. And I got away with everything. Bullied a lot. I was a timid kid. Didn't have much of an upbringing, man-wise. My role model was my uncle, who lived with us, and he was in and out of jail quite a bit. He was definitely the alcoholic of the family back then. That's it. Nothing really special. I was spoiled rotten. Every Christmas, everybody used to laugh because Chuck got a new bicycle every Christmas. My mother always had a great Christmas for us. When I turned 12, 13, that turned into motorcycles, dirt bikes, and we had sandbanks down behind the place and just go riding and go crazy. It was a good childhood with a lot of drama, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it sounds like there's definitely adversity and things like that, but sounds like you had a weird mix of a lot of adversity and rough upbringing and a lot of love and family still there.
Both, yeah.
And for the people, we'll get into more, but that are listening and don't know you, what was your main drug of choice? Although I know there's probably others.
Main drug of choice, alcohol.
Okay.
A lot of cocaine later on in my story.
The 80s.
80s, 90s, 2000s, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get sober till I was 47 years old.
Yeah.
So I got a long history. And we'll get back to that when you ask me about my first drink, because I'm sure that's coming.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is let's start at the beginning. Like, that's your childhood. Where did drinking first come into play, or your first time drinking?
In my childhood. 10 years old, maybe 10 years old. My mother, it was just before my grandma passed away. They used to go next door. It was a duplex, and they'd play penny poker on Saturday nights. And they had 3 boys that were right around my age. And they'd always push for me to sleep over. It's right next door, but they wanted me to sleep over. And they'd break and wind up, I'd be sleeping over. Their father had a bar. And one night we were kids. We took a bottle off the shelf while they were playing cards. I took a sip of it, and it almost killed me. But it was warm. It just felt different. He took a sip and he almost instantly threw up. Before we put that bottle back, I had another sip. So my first drink was 2 drinks. And that was, like I said, like 10 years old. I believe I had the alcoholic tendencies right around 6, 7 years old. I was just youth gone wild at a very young age. Anyway, that's my first drink. Then there was a few years. Like I said, I was bullied a lot when I was younger. So I started hanging with 13, I was 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. I was hanging with guys that were 17, 18 years old. They'd come and pick me up in their car and we go cruising. And they can get the drugs and the booze. Never really liked smoking weed. I don't know, for some reason it just put me to sleep. But I would fake it. I might take a toke off the bowl and pass it on. But it was alcohol that got me. And by age 15, I was probably a daily drinker. I'd have a friend get me an 8-pack of little Budweiser bottles, and I'd go sit in my bedroom or in the woods and drink that down, catch a buzz, and I was great. I'd go to school. Everybody was getting high before school. This is middle school time now. And I didn't like getting high. So I would sneak a quart or 2 of beer, Budweiser quarts. I had a big army jacket I used to wear. And I'd be in the dugouts down Rogers Park drinking that before I went to school. Because if I didn't have a buzz, I was not staying in school. I just didn't fit in. I was uncomfortable. You hear it all the time. You know, if you're doing a 12-step program, everybody, I was uncomfortable in my own skin. You know, it was terrible. It was a lot of anxiety. I called it social anxiety, but it wasn't just social. I was just wake up in the morning and I was anxious. I needed that mind-altering feeling, you know. And that's when it started, and it never really ended. Keg parties were a big thing. Everywhere I ever went. By this time, I had my driver's license. I quit school when I was 16. I dropped my girlfriend off at high school, and I'm driving around with my buddies, 16, 17 years old, drinking beer all day, hanging down the park. And hold a job for a little while, put gas in the car. Of course, back then, gas was $1 a gallon or less. It was pretty easy. That's how it went on. And I got lucky, I guess. My girlfriend, I talked about driving her to school. She kept me out of trouble. She kept me somewhat on the straight line. And just before we changed the subject, I was still drinking, but I wound up marrying her, and we're still together today. She's the glue that held me somewhat together, kept me out of trouble. But there'll be more about my drinking history, I'm sure, before the day's over. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing you touched on that is a very important fact for people to hear is that you believe it's kind of always there. You know, like you were a child and everyone had one, you already went for 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I think a lot of people, there's a big debate nowadays, like, is it a disease, is it not, even though it's been proven, or, you know, is it in you? Like, can you like cure yourself from it? And I always say,
no.
Like it's if you talk to a real alcoholic, it's like I'm not having one ever in my life.
What I know today, what I didn't know back then, I can't just have one because I have the physical allergy once I put it in my system. My wife tells me stories. Like I said, we were dating when we were kids. Her and her girlfriend would be down the woods with me or whatever. We had motorcycle trails we used to ride on. And I'd have a couple of 8-packs. And they'd be drinking right with me. She tells me now that they were dumping them out behind them to pretend like they were keeping up with me. I'm like, why are you wasting my beer? I would have drank those. I never had enough. I never had enough beer. I was the last one at the keg, shaking it, tipping it upside down. You know, you always hear these people talk about, drank so much I threw up. Well, I did that twice. There's ways around it. It was funny at the end of my drinking. I was throwing up when I didn't drink. You know, that's how it progresses.
And when you're at 15, you're already basically a daily drinker. I mean, and that's the craziness of alcoholism, which I can relate to, is like there wasn't a sign there to stop or any way to how, but it's how we feel good. Yeah. You know, I relate to that so much. So as time goes on, you keep dating who ends up to be your wife, where did things, let's say, what was the first consequence? Like things were started to become a problem outwardly.
Well, school for one. I quit school because I couldn't party at school and I wanted to be out there. I needed that fix. A couple of small run-ins with the law. Nothing serious. They called my mom at work. Yeah, come pick your son up at the police department, whatever. He did this. Believe it or not, the first real consequence, and I didn't even really pay that bad for it, was the night of my wife's bridal shower. I dropped her off at my friend's house where they were having a shower. We were getting married in a couple of weeks. And one of the guys said, what do you want to do? I said, well, let's go have a couple beers. I'll drive. Everything's cool. And coming home from that, I decided I want to do some donuts in the middle of the road. You know? And there was a cop watching me, and us drunks, I could outrun them. Can't outrun them. I wound up getting arrested right in front of my wife's bridal shower. All her friends and family are coming out. I'm getting cuffed, and that was probably the biggest, the first one. It didn't stop me. They bailed me out of jail. She drove me to work the next morning. I got a ride home from work, and I was drunk by noon again. So it didn't wake me up. Wasn't long after that, we started, 25 years old, we had our first kid. 18 months later, we had another kid. And the anxiety really got bad because, wow, these little ones are depending on me. And I was fortunate, I work in a trade, excuse me. I'm a machinist tool maker. And back in those days, it was acceptable to party on the job. I could drink, go out for the liquid lunches and stuff. As long as your work was good, nobody. So once again, I was able to drink every day. Still wasn't enough. I'd have to stop at the bar on the way home. I get out of work at 3, I'm home at 6. It caused some problems with the marriage. But like I said, she was the glue that held it all together. And that'll come up again later when I get to the recovery part. Just a mess.
Did you ever have times when you say even like when you're a machinist or even younger that you tried to stop on your own and then it failed?
Very few. I did quit once for 3 years on my own, no program. Didn't know anything about any 12-step program. I just want to stop for a while. And it was a good 3 years. I was happy. The kids were having a good time. I was actually attending their baseball games instead of sitting in the car looking through the windshield, like most drunks do. And I remember this because it reminds me of the allergy. And they say how the first drink will get you drunk or the first drug will get you stoned. I was down Daytona Beach with my brother-in-law, and I was going to be the safe rides for the week. We went down for the races. We were on Daytona Beach probably 15 minutes, and I said, an 8-ounce draft won't hurt me. And I drank that beer, and I was off and running for another 10, 15 years. Couldn't stop.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then when I was introduced to the program, I can say it right. Yeah. AA. I'm an active member of AA. There were many times where, I don't really need this program. I could do it myself. And I'd leave for a week and come back drunk. I did that for years, in and out, in and out. I don't know if I wasn't getting the message. I know I wasn't accepting the message. I was fighting it. I had a lot of fun times drinking. Some really great times. Right before I got married, I was living with a Coke dealer. Come home from work and there's a pile on the table. Yeah, help yourself. Next thing it's 8 o'clock in the morning. We're watching the Flintstones, all strung out. So I had a lot of great times. A lot of stupid stuff. I drove my car into a reservoir. You don't do that when you're sober, but I got away with it. Nothing happened. Never paid any consequences. That arrest I had, the DWI, reckless operation, engaged in pursuit, never lost my driver's license. So I stop. It's okay. And back then, once in a while, you get pulled over and cops say, where are you headed? Just up the road. All right, I'll follow you home. not like today. So
Yeah, today is totally different. I got a DUI parked in front of my parents, so they say they blame it on the camera because they say, if you drive off and kill someone, they're gonna see that I had you pulled over an hour before. So definitely sucks. But at what point did it feel like physically you started to realize it was an issue, like actual addiction or withdrawals? Has going since you're 15 and things are getting weird already?
well, like I said, right around when my kids were very young, I was having the anxiety issues. God, I got to make sure I keep a job. I was paranoid about losing my job. The anxiety got so bad, I was having panic attacks. So I went and I sought help on that. And they gave me some medication. Of course, we're not honest with the doctor, so I'm taking the medication and drinking, which is counteracting each other. Just made me even that, it just gets worse. Never better, right? But I knew it was an issue. And it wasn't long after that I was introduced to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. My neighbor at the time, my mother's neighbor at the time, was in AA. He had like 3 years. And I was telling him my problems. He goes, "You want to go to a meeting?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" I was drunk. "Yeah, let's go check it out." And he took me to a meeting, and I don't remember what happened. I know that I knew a few people in that room, but it was still years before I found my way back. I was a regular at bars. Once my son got a little bit bigger, maybe 5 years old, I used to frequent a lot of the low-bottom bars. They'd open up in the morning for you. And I'd give him a handful of quarters for the pinball machine, and I'd sit there and drink screwdrivers all morning. Yeah, alcohol was a problem. I just didn't know how to deal with it, or I wasn't sure if I wanted to deal with it. At that point, I was surviving. I was working. I always brought home a paycheck. Bills were paid. So
I like the word surviving because I think a lot of people look at me when they're not addicts and they ask, or they're sober curious. It's like I'm not having fun. Like, you know what I mean? Whether you're a dope fiend, an alcoholic, it's like, even I remember times when my parents would kind of just be like, which I don't blame them, like, "What are you doing, dude?" And it's like, no, this isn't a party at this point. I'm just getting through the day. It's important for the families to hear that.
the non-addictive person, I call them earthlings.
Yeah.
My wife happens to be one. She used to like to party a little bit, but once we had kids, she stopped and she expected me to, and I'm an alcoholic. I cannot stop. Where was I going with that? Sorry. They don't understand that my mind tells me that no matter what's going on around me, a drink is going to make me feel better. It's going to make that go away for a while. And then once I put it in my system, I'm gone. So that being said, can we jump forward a little bit to where I started really going to AA in and out, and I wasn't getting the message. And I had a sponsor and all, and so I was going to meetings 5 nights a week. I was making coffee at a couple of them, but every once in a while I would drink. And sometimes I'd show up at a meeting, I'd be a little drunk, and I'd fake it. And they all knew what was going on. Come on. Nobody knows an alcoholic more than an alcoholic, right? I finally told my sponsor, I said, "Look, I love you guys. I love the program. I love the fellowship, but I can't live both ways. So I'm going out." And I went out for 4 years, and that was my last run. And at the end of that, I was drinking for pure survival. So I didn't realize it at the time, but I was praying back then. Because every night before I passed out, I'd say, "God, don't let me wake up in the morning." That's how serious it got. Because I knew it was going to be the same routine. I'd get up in the morning, my eyes would open, I'd be anxious, and just, the feeling was hoarse. It was just terrible. I'd have to go outside on the back porch and get down a little bit of vodka just so I could get dressed and go to work. And I told you this part of my story, but I had a parking spot at a gas station down the road. I would get there at 5 a.m. I didn't start work till 7. I'd sit there and chain smoke cigarettes and drink vodka until I went to work. Then I'd have a water bottle full, and I'd just nip all day just to maintain. It was around-the-clock vodka drinking at the end for 4 years.
And what did, like, when it got like that ugly, what was, whether either the last drink or what was the first time you asked for help? What did it look like?
Well, the first time I asked for help, I wasn't serious about it. I was trying to get out of trouble with the wife.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know about that yet, but you will. No, hopefully
Maybe.
you won't. But after that 4-year run, it was Thanksgiving time, 2010. And I was a selfish, self-centered person. I had financed a house and bought a race car. I was going drag racing on the weekends. That was my excuse to go drink the way I wanted to drink. Nobody around. So I'm sitting out in the garage around Thanksgiving, and I'm on the hood of that car, and I'm thinking about killing myself. There was no other way out. And the only thing that stopped me, by that time I had a third child, my son, my youngest. He was 12 years old, maybe 13. The only thing that stopped me from killing myself was him coming out to the garage and finding me. Because that race car was as much his as it was mine. He loved it. So I faked my way, and Christmas morning, 5 a.m., I'm sitting down that gas station. Country music on the radio, chain smoking, a bottle of vodka, and I'm crying my eyes out. I'm like, I just got to get through this somehow. How can I fix this? So I went home. I was drunk enough. I was able to watch the kids open their gifts. And 2 days later, I called my sponsor. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I called him. I said, look, I need your help. I can't live like this anymore. He said, I'll meet you after work. I'll take you to a meeting. Went to that meeting, and I swore I was not going to drink the next day. I woke up in the morning, I got down to the gas station. I was just going to get a pack of cigarettes. I started feeling like I was having a seizure or something. It was not a body experience. So I called him. He goes, do you have anything? I said, yeah, I got a bottle under the seat. He goes, well, drink it and call me later. Took a couple of shots and all those bad feelings went away. That's when it clicked in my head. It's alcoholism, no doubt about it. 10 o'clock that morning, my wife, myself, my sponsor wind up in the hospital. Doctor's checking me all out. My wife's going nuts, and he's trying to find a bed in a rehab for me, which we finally did. But it was funny because I called him that early in the morning. He answered on the first ring. And he was going to bring me later on that afternoon to rehab. And I had it all worked out. I told my wife, I said, you got to go pick up my mom so I could say goodbye to her. You go home and have lunch. You can come and pick me up because I had a bottle under the seat of my truck and I wanted to finish that before I went away. Alcoholic thinking. That was the 27th of December, 2010. That was my last drink. I woke up the next morning in rehab. And my story goes on from there.
Well, I think it's pretty neat. I mean, it testifies to the 12 steps. You know, you made that one call and that guy was there to help you, and talk about it a little at the end probably, but you know, that's what you've done for me and all the guys, you know, and it's amazing how it works. So then you start going to 12 steps, AA consistently at that point?
7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I was miserable. Miserable. I remember I was making coffee. I remember standing up, getting my 1-year coin. And I got this fake smile on, and I'm speaking. My family's all there, kids, wife, mother-in-law. And I got this fake smile going, and inside I'm just being ripped apart. I'm either going to get drunk or I just want to die. I was miserable. So I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be something better than this. And my sponsor always said, something about it, pray on it. You don't sit in a bar and talk to the guy next to you about God. You know, that just wasn't part of the deal. But I seriously took that advice and I just started praying. And about 2 weeks later, I met one guy. His name was Ralph. That's as far as I'll go. But he had this look about him, a peaceful look, a big smile. I said, this guy's got something. So I got talking with him. He invited me to his house. He did a meeting on Thursday nights, kind of like what I do on Wednesday nights with the guys. Bullshit session, but we'd open up the book, read a couple paragraphs. And it got me out of my shell. And we started working the 12 steps out of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was life-changing for me. instantly I felt this little bit of freedom. And then as I was working with these guys, one guy said, see, the key to sobriety is finding a way to be happy not drinking. And that's what the 12 steps got me. By the time I finally surrendered in step 3, didn't know what I was surrendering to, but I found out later on is working the steps, you gain that higher power, which I call God today. Still don't know what it is, but I don't need to know as long as it's working in my life, and it is. Doing the 4th step, all those things that I share about my childhood, I was able to write them down and look at them and share them with somebody. What a difference. All these things I used to wake up in the middle of the night like, oh my God, how did I make it through that? I don't even think about it today, unless I'm at a meeting and I'm sharing it to hopefully help somebody else who's going through that situation. Anyway, meeting that one person changed my entire outlook on AA, and my sobriety just boom. I remember talking to my sponsor one day and saying, I don't feel right raising my hand because I don't feel like I deserve this kind of sobriety. And he goes, you deserve it. You work for it. Do it. What happened, the AA he was feeding me all those years was what he was getting. It was good enough for him to stay sober. But he started doing what I was doing, and his sobriety exploded like, wow, this is great. So there is a difference between the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's the program that saved my life, because today I could be happy and not have to take anything that alters my mind. So
Yeah, I want
good
to.
stuff.
That's what you said is, I think what a lot of people don't understand is and then I have a big question, but we don't just stop drinking, because I think a lot of people reach out to me on social media for help. They're very sober curious, never been sober, no idea what they're getting into. And they're like, it just seems like it sucks and it's boring. And I'm like, that's not sobriety. You know what I mean? I was like, you could live, better than you did drinking. And that's the whole point. It's not to just stop, it's to live. But want to debunk something, because a lot of thing, and I know you're not on TikTok, but a big thing when it comes to AA, I'll let you answer, because I can't talk about certain stuff, but is AA religion, and is it a certain God? Because a lot of people are just, what's the word? They're ignorant. They've never been to AA.
Right.
They don't know. And people tell them, oh, it is. And they're like, oh, I heard God, so it's Christianity or something. I'm not going there.
Absolutely not. It is a God of your understanding. I've heard things like, well, use a brick wall. Well, that's kind of stupid to me, because I think I'm a little bit better than a brick wall.
Yeah.
It could be your family. It could be your sponsor. It could be the group itself. It's in here. Just got to surrender. Hey, I can't do this on my own. I got to have somebody's help or something's help. I was the Antichrist before I got sober. You never knew what Chuck was walking in the door after work. I'm not that person today. My wife gets some mad at me because I just like to just sit in quiet for a while and just let my mind go. She's like, we got to do this, got to do that, got to do this. No, we don't. It'll get done, right? I was never like that. I never knew how to just breathe. I could walk out my backyard today, just watch a hawk fly by, and it's like, is that God or is that God? It's something. Don't get me wrong. I am. But anyway, no, it is not religious. It's spirituality. It's whatever you want to believe in, as long as you believe in something. But I was curious, so I started studying the Bible a little bit. I mean, I'm not a well-educated man, so I'm studying it the best I can. I listen to a few people on YouTube. And it's really the same depending on what you listen to. Some of it's far-fetched, but it's just getting out of myself. I realize today that I'm just a little pinhead in the universe. I'm not that important. I don't have to make every decision on my own. But you learn all this by sticking around the rooms. You don't have to believe in God right away. Just keep coming. God will find you if you're serious about it. That's kind of what happened to me. I say it a lot. We don't catch alcoholics. We don't catch alcoholism out here. You know, you catch it in the rooms, it comes in through the years if you just listen and open your mind.
That's why when two people tell me they're not faithful and they're like walk on water, and I was totally that person. Like I was like, none of this makes sense. It's like a fairy tale. But I think from everything you said to where you are today, from me smoking crack in my car in front of my parents' house to where I'm at, that's walking on water. Those are the people we get to see get sober. So it's opening just a little bit of faith that things can happen that you don't think is going to happen. That's
Well,
where
I
it
know
started.
this isn't about you, but you're a miracle. You know, I saw you at your worst.
You watched me struggle for a while.
Yeah, and you know what? You made it.
Uh,
And that's the joy I get today, is watching a new guy coming in and he's struggling and struggling and struggling. And then one day he comes in and his eyes are wide open. He's, boom, you can see it in his face. He got it, or she got it, or that's the joy I get today, watching somebody else get it.
And that's how it works, and that's the faith. Because when I came in, I had none, and I thought I was like the only fucked up person. And then a friend would say that he threw hammers through the walls, or you would tell me you ruined the bridal shower and ran from the cops. I'm like, oh, these guys, and now they look the way they do and they're smiling and sober. I was like, all right, have some faith in this. I'll give it a shot, So you sort of find a higher power, do the steps, you celebrate your 1 year. What did like amends, or like how did your life start to go better with family, and where is it at today, and the blessings of sobriety?
For me, working the steps was easy. Once I got past the inventory part and sharing with another person, like I said, that changed my life. I wasn't holding all that stuff inside anymore. Working 6 and 7, my character defects, I'll be working on them forever. Come on. I like to have fun too much, so I can't be perfect, and I'm far from perfect. I still make mistakes. That's when I take my will back. 10, 11, and 12 are huge. I have to look back at my day every evening. Did I hurt anyone? Do I owe anybody an apology? What could I have done better? 11 is, like I said, just going out my backyard and watching a hawk fly by. That's meditation to me. Just breathing the air. Campfires. I love campfires. And as far as making amends, yeah, I had a small list, but man, more will be revealed. Because just when I thought I was done, your higher power will just throw people at you. Oh yeah, I remember that one. You have to go make that amends. Right? But it's freeing. I can walk in any restaurant, anywhere I want to go, any store, and I don't have to look at the floor anymore. I can look people in the eye because I don't think I owe anyone anything. I have my monthly bills like we all do, but now it's what you call the living amends. Okay, let's continue on this path. Let's grow. Like I said, I still make mistakes. I still fall back into those old patterns, but I'm aware of it today. I snap myself out of it. It's kind of easy because every day I get a text on my phone from somebody in the program, and it brings me back. And to maintain that, I still do a lot of meetings. Being 14 years in, I feel like I'm missing something if I don't go to my meetings. That's the cool part. Where I used to have to drag myself to a meeting. Now I want to be there. I never wanted to share at meetings. I never wanted to be called on it. Now you can't shut me up. I'm the class clown. My sarcasm gets in the way sometimes. But I love to hear people laugh, and that's why I do it. I'll make those little jokes during the meetings just to lighten it up and hear a few giggles. We're not a glum lot. Let's have fun. To me, a 12-step meeting, should be a pep rally. From what I was 14 years ago to what I am today. Careful what you wish for. You'll shortchange yourself. I love that saying. I know that was probably coming up later, but that's one of my favorite quotes from AA. And I'm always there if somebody needs help. I may not like the person, but I love them all. We had this discussion not too long ago. They're all God's children. And if an alcoholic is reaching out for help, whether it be a simple problem, all right, well, don't share about that at the meeting, but meet me in the parking lot afterwards. We'll go over it. I love that kind of stuff, the one-on-one work with an alcoholic. I've sponsored a lot of guys, got a lot of guys through the book. They come and go. I bump into them once in a while. They're still sober, great. They're out doing their thing now. They're doing what I did. It's like you. You're taking it a little too far. You go above and beyond, which is awesome compared to where you were. And you have the time. Hopefully, I plan on retiring this year, I hope. And then I'll have more time to put towards it. But I do my part. I get out, do speaking commitments. I go to the rehab centers with friends and share with them. I'm staying active in the program, and it keeps me connected. Big Book says we have a daily reprieve contingent on our spiritual conditioning. That's how I stay spiritually connected. I open the Big Book every day. I might just read a line. I might just read a paragraph. I might read 3 pages, but I open it every day. It plugs me in. Keeps me on the right track.
Yeah. Well, I know you say like you're doing your part, but your part's huge because people that don't know Chuck, anywhere I go or in sobriety around here, someone says Chuck or refers what Chuck says. Or I know myself, my friend today, we went to go look at places and then got lunch on the way back. He's like, oh, so who's on the podcast tonight? And I just said a guy that like I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be able to help people if it wasn't for you. So I appreciate having you on here, and the help trickles really far. I know that, so I appreciate you. And one of my favorite quotes before we get into the 3 questions is Chuck is in the book. I'm sure you don't care that I say it. I don't know what we still don't know. I think it's Charlie or something.
Yeah, I don't remember what you call it.
It's with the C. But it ends up, since he doesn't care, some people did. That was Chuck. And my favorite quote for you is that whenever I used to come out, and you probably know this, but I share about it a lot, is I had a big ego. And I relapsed, all the time. And your one thing to me would always be like, you're not that important. And at first I remember being like, this fucking guy's an asshole. Like, I didn't know you like that. And I was like, what is he saying? Asshole. And they were like, just listen to him. And I'd question, because I think deep, so I'd be like, what does he mean? Like, is he just being a dick or what? And then I remember on my 1 year, it started to make sense pretty quickly as I got sober. Like, I would complain about not sharing or whatever it may be. And I was like, he's trying to take my ego away. And like, I do have to think about other people. And now look where I am, all about helping people. But I remember my 1 year was like one of the most special moments in sobriety that someone came up to me and I was celebrating and they asked, could I help them? And you were like, you're that important though. You have to say yes. And it kind of perfectly humbled me out. I thought I was up here. I wasn't. Then I thought I was down here and it put me right there. So I appreciate that quote of you a lot. That was special.
What's funny though is all this stuff that I have told you and others is stuff that people told me.
Yeah.
And that's how this works. We just hand it down.
Yeah.
I love that part. That Vermont trip was killer. I mean, that was so awesome. I love doing day trips like that. Go take in a meeting and have lunch and just fellowship.
And then I got as drunk as I've ever gotten that night. But I wasn't ready. I was a problem back then.
Boy, we were calling you a prick and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
No one believed me when I came the next day. I was like, I got drunk last night. Like, what's wrong with you?
But you got it.
Yeah.
That's all that counts,
Yeah. So I want to start with our usual 3 questions.
Terrific.
First, is there anything we didn't get to talk about that you want to get out there, you wanted to say? Sometimes I miss something. Or do you feel like we touched most topics?
I think I pretty much...
I think you did great. I just want to make sure you're not like, I wish you asked me this.
Just be open and be honest.
Yeah.
What a great life. I have a great life today. Walls could be crashing all around me, but my sponsor always tells me, keep God right here and everything's good.
Yeah.
It is. Tomorrow's a good day. It's not even here yet.
Absolutely. All right. So let's start with it. Unless you want to use the same one, what's your favorite go-to quote, either on a rough day or AA, God, whatever little go-to quote if you had to use?
Thy will, not mine. And that being said, is anyone's will except mine. Because like I said, I'm famous for making wrong decisions.
Well. And who are you staying sober for today?
Me. Absolutely. Like I said, my wife stuck with me for all these years. She is the glue that holds me together. She should have booted my ass many times. And even in sobriety, things aren't perfect, but we stick together. She stuck by me. I compare myself to Bill W. I was stuck with him too, you know. There's a saying, some of us alcoholics, we get lucky with the wives we pick, you know. So
Definitely blessed to have that partner.
but if I can't stay sober for myself, what's the sense of staying sober? It took me a time to figure that out too. My wife even asked me, all those years I was hounding you to quit drinking and you never did. How come now? I said, because I wanted to. It's a difference. You got to do it for yourself. It's got to be for you.
It's got to be.
And it's got to be the most important thing. My sobriety has to come before anything. If I'm not comfortable in a situation, my wife understands I need to get out of there. I don't have those situations. I can go anywhere in the world and do anything I want to do as long as I don't pick up a drink. It's a good feeling. I'm free.
Love being free.
Love being free.
And what would you say, if you want, you could say it into the camera, what would you say to someone that is struggling today and asks you for help or needs encouragement?
There's hope. Honest, open. Find one or two friends that you can trust that are going through it and just open your mind and go for it. Don't let God scare you. God is good, no matter what your God is. So.
Love it. Well, Chuck, thank you, man. You've been a pillar in my life, in my sobriety. I appreciate you.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me.
No, absolutely. I have to have a round two someday. We'll catch up and see where we're both at when you're retired. But I appreciate you so much. And
let's change sides. I'll interview you.
Yeah, maybe that's actually funny because I was just thinking I was gonna have someone interview me for my 6th year next month. So maybe we could do that. That'd be cool.
I don't know, man. It's a pleasure to know you, though. It's good stuff.
You too, man. It's been a blessing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, everyone. Chuck, with his amazing story. God bless. Reach out if you need help. If you are struggling today, we're always here. This episode of Addicts Truth Podcast is sponsored by Still Behavior Health. And if you don't need help, make sure you reach out to someone you love and touch them today. Spread some positivity. Chuck, my guy, I love you, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Everyone have a good day. Thank you for tuning in. Give a like and a follow.